the people you associate with. That affects the stuff you feed your mind. Do you think the people you hang out with has an effect on the way you feed your mind? Here's what I think everybody should do. All right? Everybody needs a mentor. Everybody needs somebody who's further along the road from them and somebody who will take them where they want to go. I know I've got a personal mentor who's up in Atlanta. I've got a personal mentor who's down in Orlando. Because in some of the stuff that I do, they are quite a bit further along the road than I am. A couple of weeks ago, I called my mentor up in Atlanta. I wanted to hear out some things. I hopped in the car. Right after I got done teaching, I drove to Atlanta, spent 3.5 hours with him, just listening to him talk. And it was just him and I, actually it's him and I, my wife and my son, just the three of us, sitting there listening to us talk, hopped in the car, and drove back home. 3.5 hours to just have somebody tell me how to do stuff. Now, why did I do that? Because it was worth every single second of it to have somebody who's further along with you. See, one of the things is so many people, only direction we get are from the people who are our peers, maybe people who just happen to chance end up into our life. My best friend from life, Pat, is right here with us today. He told me a story a couple of days ago that really impacted me. And I asked him if I could share it with you. He said, yeah. How many people here have ever heard of Carl Icahn? Anybody ever heard of Carl Icahn? You know, everybody who's in business, everybody who's ever read anything about business, has heard of Carl Icahn. He's probably, I would say, if you go and read the business press, you will probably hear more from Carl Icahn than anyone else. I'm pretty sure he's one of the 10 wealthiest people in the world. I'd have to go check the Forbes, but I know beyond a shadow of doubt he's one of the 20th, and he's probably in the top 10. I'm wanting to say he's like number 4, but he's a very wealthy man. I'm just putting that in perspective right now, okay? So that's Carl Icahn. Well, Pat was telling me he had a business associate that he worked with on some projects who was worth about $400 million. Now, let me ask you a question. If you were worth $400 million, would you feel like you had arrived? Would you feel like, hey, look, you know, I don't need a mentor anymore. I don't need somebody telling me how to get better. I've figured it out. I guarantee if I was worth $400 million, and the person made $400 million from scratch, I mean, it wasn't like it was given to him. He made $400 million. I would have thought, I've arrived. You never arrive. He said his friend, somehow or another, just because of some transfer of property, they ended up together in a deal with Carl Icahn. And Carl Icahn said, hey, look, I'd like to, since we're going to be together on this deal, why don't I fly you up to my house and we'll spend the weekend together. So he brought his wife, and Carl sent the private jet, flew him up there, and they spent the weekend together. And after the weekend together, it's sort of the end of the weekend, and Carl Icahn looks at this guy who's worth $400 million. And he says, I just want to know, did you want to learn how to make some real money? Now I'm sitting there thinking, what's $400 million? Is that fake money? I mean, for me, anything that has 7 or more digits, that's real money. But Carl Icahn says, you want to know how to make some real money? And the guy's going like, yeah, I'd like to know how to make some real money. Carl Icahn goes, I'll show you. And in the next 2 years, the guy went from being worth $400 million to being worth over $2 billion. Just by association. I'm sitting there going, wow, I want to. Anybody got Carl Icahn's phone number? Well, Carl Icahn's not going to hang out with me because, you know, who's Carl Icahn going to mentor? He's going to mentor the 400 millionaires, right? The people who are worth $400 million. But I'll guarantee you every one of us can find somebody a little bit further in life from us and find somebody that will help us get what it is that we want to. You know, the problem is that how we think and the people we surround ourselves, it works in the opposite direction too. You know, if you don't hang out with the right people, they're going to take you in the totally wrong direction. I know as a university professor, I've taught, like I said, at 4 university campuses. At every single one of them, I had not been there for 2 weeks until somebody shows up at my office. They look this way. They look that way. They step inside. They close the door. They lean across the desk and they go, I just want to tell you how things work around here. You've had a visit like that, right? Most people have, right? Now let me ask you the question. Does that visit come from somebody who started out as mailroom assistant to the janitorial staff and climbed their way up to senior vice president? No. It always starts, that visit always comes from somebody who started out at the bottom of the corporate food chain and has been moving down ever since. I know that in my instances, 2 of the people who visited my office, they were fired within 2 years after they gave me that visit, and that's at a university where we don't fire people. You know, the person who wants to swing by and tell you how things work around here, they're clueless. They don't know how things work around here. If they knew how things work around here, they'd be working. Now, does that mean that the person who started out as janitorial assistant to the mailroom clerk and climbed their way up to senior vice president, does that mean that they won't have anything to do with you? No, but you have to seek them out. They're not going to seek you out. If you just let people flow into your life because they happen to want to straighten you out, you're headed for trouble. Find people who are where you want to be and get around them.